prie à chacun et chacune de bien vouloir
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I would like you to take your seats so the summit can start. Thank you.
Non, il n'y a personne là-bas.
vers vos sièges.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seat. We will soon get started.
S'il vous plaît, merci de vous dire.
Start in a few minutes. Please take your seats. Please welcome His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire.
The African Development.
Monsieur le vice-président est accompagné par les responsables de la Banque africaine de développement, la Banque islamique de développement et d'autres figures importantes des initiatives de financement pour les femmes entrepreneurs.
Son Excellence.
Honorable Vice President, we thank you for your presence here today. To all, I say Akwaba. Please be welcome at this regional summit on Wi-Fi. I would like to say thank you to all those who are right here in this room and those following us on the social networks. We would like to put a special focus on small and medium enterprises, but also on women. In other words, try to talk about how women can engage in business. And it is for this that this summit is going to look into the various sectors in order to open doors to women entrepreneurs of this region. So how do we help these women? How do we make some tools available to them so that they can run their businesses successfully? This is the reason why we are here together. So without further ado, I'm going to call Jeffrey Okamoto. Jeffrey Okamoto is Wi-Fi Chair and Acting Assistant Secretary.
Mesdames et messieurs, chers invités, bon après-midi. C'est un honneur pour moi d'être parmi les premiers à prendre la parole à ce sommet régional ouest africain. J'aimerais saluer la présence de la Banque mondiale, la Banque africaine de développement, la Banque islamique de développement. C'est ma deuxième journée ici pour parler de la collaboration internationale et l'engagement de centaines de millions de dollars en faveur de femmes à travers le monde et qui a mobilisé beaucoup plus dans un délai incroyable. L'un des premiers obstacles était de nous assurer que notre nom soit clairement mentionné. J'ai entendu Wi-Fi et mon favori c'est le Wi-Fi. Pour nous, c'est Wi-Fi, donc We Finance, nous finançons. Il y a beaucoup d'insuffisances à combler pour s'assurer que les femmes participent à l'économie et participent de la même façon et bénéficient comme les hommes. Nous allons permettre d'avoir une croissance internationale sans précédent si les femmes, en tant qu'entrepreneurs, ont suffisamment de moyens. Elles vont non seulement évoluer elles-mêmes, mais toucher de nouveaux marchés, améliorer les niveaux de vie avec un ensemble de bénéfices à l'endroit de tous. Ceci va permettre d'inspirer d'autres femmes pour qu'elles rêvent grand et qu'elles puissent elles-mêmes tracer de nouveaux sillons pour elles. Une nouvelle philosophie pour la croissance. Nous ne connaissons qu'une seule espèce qui puisse entraîner une croissance de divers aspects. Et il s'agit de la femme, parce que la femme a la capacité d'utiliser les connaissances précédentes et de penser aux prochaines générations beaucoup mieux que nous. Nous allons faire l'expérience de la croissance. La croissance économique n'est pas complexe, mais c'est difficile pour nos décideurs politiques. Il y a trois rôles. Premièrement, faire en sorte que les gens puissent consommer ce qu'ils produisent, leur permettre de poursuivre leurs ambitions et troisièmement, avoir les compétences. Je crois que ce modèle fonctionne, mais cela ne va pas à l'endroit de la plupart des femmes aujourd'hui. Pour ceux qui ont fait l'entrepreneuriat déjà, c'est difficile même pour les hommes aux États-Unis, avoir les compétences adéquates. Est-ce que mon plan d'affaires est crédible? Est-ce que les gens vont utiliser mes produits? Ensuite, j'ai écouté les histoires des femmes entrepreneurs que j'ai rencontrées en Afrique de l'Ouest, en Asie. Elles n'ont pas l'éducation, n'ont pas l'accès aux services financiers, très peu de flexibilité pour opérer dans des environnements dominés par les hommes. Les chaînes de distribution sont difficiles. Les hommes préfèrent recruter des hommes. Et parfois, ces femmes demandent à des hommes, par exemple leur mari, d'échanger avec les banquiers. Pour moi, c'est inacceptable. Ces obstacles empêchent les femmes de réaliser leurs aspirations, mais empêchent également les pays de bénéficier de la croissance économique et de la prospérité que les femmes peuvent apporter. Si l'égalité des genres ne suffit pas, nous devons convaincre que l'autonomisation des femmes est essentielle pour sortir les populations de la pauvreté. Ivanka Trump sera là pour parler de l'initiative qu'elle lance aux États-Unis, qui parle de l'autonomisation des femmes qui a un effet multiplicateur. C'est la raison pour laquelle nous avons conçu Wi-Fi. Des interventions du secteur privé pour des interventions au niveau des politiques, afin de créer un environnement favorable pour les femmes qui peuvent bénéficier de conditions financières pour les PME dirigées ou conçus par des femmes. Nous avons pu mobiliser 350 millions de dollars et au nom des États-Unis, j'ai l'honneur d'être à la tête du comité gouvernant de cette initiative. Nous avons reçu des réponses positives à nos propositions. Le comité de gouvernance a donné son accord pour des projets à hauteur de 300 millions de dollars. Une partie, l'accès à ces fonds se fera à travers la Banque africaine du développement parce que nous visons à créer une grande prospérité pour le continent africain. Merci et bon sommet.
Thank you, Mr. Okamoto. Dream big, you've just told us. What a beautiful leitmotiv. Osons le succès, vraiment osons. À présent,
Let's dream big. Now, I'm going to give the floor to the president of the Islamic Development Bank, Mr. Bandar Ajar.
thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Honorable Daniel Kelan Duncan, Vice President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to sincerely thank the Honorable Al-Hassan Ouattara, the President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, for hosting this important summit, and the WIFI Secretariat for its excellent organization and effort in raising awareness on the importance of women's economic empowerment and financial inclusion as a means not only of achieving sustainable economic growth, but also of realizing equitable and inclusive societies. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our discussion today will build on the momentum created through the establishment of the Women's Entrepreneurs Finance Initiatives, the first funding facility dedicated to supporting women in developing countries by providing them with the increased access to finance, market, and networks to start and grow their business. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all contributing donors and stakeholders for this initiative. Women entrepreneurs play a critical role in economic development by boosting growth and creating jobs, particularly for the bottom 40%. However, this group of women are facing numerous challenges ranging from the lack of access financing, starting and growing business, including access to capital and technology, lack of networks and knowledge resources, as well as legal, regulatory, and policy obstacles, business ownership, and development. Distinguished guests, as an implementing partner of WIFI, the Islamic Development Bank is committed to addressing the financial and non-financial constraints faced by women-owned, led small and medium firms in developing countries. WIFI provide an opportunity for the Islamic Development Bank group to increase focus and attention to women-led owned SMC under the Business Resilience Assistance for the Value-Adding Enterprises, BRAVE program. Through the grant provided under WIFI, the Islamic Development Bank targets the specific barriers women entrepreneurs are facing to enhance their resilience in fragile contexts as potential engine for innovation, employment, and inclusive sustainable growth. In the framework of BRAVE program, the IST, member of the Islamic Development Bank Group, in 2017, launched an integrated package to support small and medium enterprises in fragile setting in Yemen with a combination of follow-up technical assistance, and businesses grant together with business training. The project supported around 300 firms while reaching in its initial stage around 70 women-owned small and medium enterprises, of which around 40 females were able to successfully implement their business continuity plan. The first phase was completed in 2018 and resulted in sustaining over 15,000 employees and creating around 1,500 new jobs, of which 20% were female employees. The bank has also supported the establishment of the Business Women Information Network, a web portal that aims to reach 1 billion businesswomen. The portal provides a unique platform to strengthen economic cooperation among businesswomen to facilitate and produce market linkage, which is a pressing issue for many small-scale women entrepreneurs. The ISTB also collaborating with the International Trade Center under the She Trade initiative to develop capacity of women-owned SMEs in exporting-oriented value chain for both local and regional markets. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, we at the ISTB believe that developing human capital is a key sustainable development, and financing alone could not address the enormous development challenges. In this context, ISTB launched a flagship program called Economic Empowerment Program, which was successfully implemented in Palestine and Tunisia. The objective of this program is to support the recipient of the financing throughout this project cycle using value chain approach. This model will ensure the access of these entrepreneurs in their small businesses and will lead to the generation of business opportunity. The program has contributed to alleviating poverty and reducing dependency on aid by developing women's productive capacity and improving their access and control over financing and non-financial resources. Another segment of our member countries which faces great challenges in obtaining financing support is the innovators and entrepreneurs in view of the perceived risk associated with the investment in innovative ideas. For this reason, the Islamic Development Bank established Transform Fund. It is $500 million science, technology, and innovation fund providing seed money for startups and SMEs to develop their ideas and facilitate the commercialization of technology. During the first round, the bank received 4,600 applications worldwide, with 41% led by women innovators, inventors, and scientists and entrepreneurs. We believe that this program will play a crucial role in advancing social and economic opportunity. The initiative is a component of the ISTB STI roadmap addressing various elements of STI. The ISTB has also undertaken several other initiatives towards women empowerment, including the ISTB Prize for Women and Girls Empowerment in Education, Community Development Program for Rural Women, Solar Energy Engineers, partnership with Barefoot College International in India, also partnership with Whitker Peace and Development Initiative, contributing to promoting peace and social inclusion in Uganda, supporting Barefoot College International Regional Community. Most recently, the bank has approved first women empowerment policy or a mail referring to that. Honorable and guest, I call upon you to provide support to countries to empower women economically. The Islamic Development Bank has supported member countries in developing the appropriate legal framework and the most suitable Islamic finance mode of financing and regulations, as well as promoting the use of advanced banking technology in order to increase the ability to achieve the financial conclusion. Let me conclude by renewing my thanks to the government and the people of Côte d'Ivoire and the Finance Secretariat for hosting and organizing this important event. I wish you a fruitful discussion. Thank you for all your kind attention. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Hajar. Shukran. I tried. J'ai à présent l'honneur d'appeler sur l'estrade.
It's my honor now to call on Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, to take the floor.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Ouattara, ably represented here today by His Excellency, the Vice President Kablan Daniel Duncan, and I know Mr. President ne peut pas être avec nous aujourd'hui à cause de la situation familiale.
I know that the President could not be with us today because of his family situation. All our condolences. I would like to welcome all the senators from the United States, the ambassadors, the ministers, the members of the diplomatic corps.
Delighted to host this event today with the government of Côte d'Ivoire, the World Bank, and to see my sister Catherine here, and also Islamic Development Bank, Dr. Hajar. I wish to specifically and especially appreciate and thank and highly commend the dynamic and gender-friendly President of Côte d'Ivoire, President Alassane Ouattara, for hosting us. And when it comes to supporting women, it is hard to beat the First Lady of Côte d'Ivoire, Madame Dominique Ouattara. She has exciting programs providing access to finance for women, and she has a great hospital called Mes Enfants, Mothers of Children, which shows her belief and faith in the role of women. Donc, je peux dire, Monsieur le Président de la République, si vous êtes en train de regarder cette émission, vous avez la compétition à la maison, mais je peux dire pas.
So, dear President, if you're watching this, you have what you need at home.
I wish to especially welcome Ivanka Trump, the daughter of the United States President and his special advisor. She's going to be joining us later today. We are delighted that the African Development Bank, to partner with you. Since you launched the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, WIFI, whatever, we know what it is, to galvanize more financing for women, your personal engagement and dedication to the cause has been impressive and inspirational. I would like us all to give it up to Ivanka Trump for what she's doing. We must give voice to women, and their voices must move away from the background to the mainstream. Growing up as a kid, the alarm clock in my neighborhood was not a regular clock. It was the voice of women, the voices of hard-working women entrepreneurs selling traditional breakfast porridge. You'll hear them as early as 6 a.m. as they market their maize porridge, which we call ogi. That was our own conflicts, by the way. In a voice that seemed to penetrate everywhere in the neighborhood, you hear them say, Ologi deo, era ogi, meaning seller ogi of ogi is here. Please buy ogi for your family for breakfast. I used to wonder how these women did it. They must have been awake since 4 a.m. to do this, lighting up their charcoal stoves, grinding maize, boiling the mixture, cooling the gelatinous ogi, and wrapping them in leaves, ready to sell. They represent the faces of hardworking and incredibly entrepreneurial Africa's greatest asset, its women. Women are life givers. Everyone in this hall today was born by a woman. Yet women who give us life are denied so many good things of life. For many, access to finance through a basic bank account is impossible. Talk less of being able to have access to credit. If women have access to finance, they would transform their lives, those of their children, and of course the rest of us, the husbands they call us. A McKinsey study found that in Southern Africa, women spend 90% of their increased income on schooling, on clothing, on nutrition for their families, compared to 35% for men. In the late 1990s, I supervised the PhD thesis of a student whose research was to look into the economic impacts of new soybean technologies on women in northern Nigeria. Soybean production has grown tremendously, and so soybean become what they call cash crop money. Asked how she felt about soybeans, this particular woman had this to say, and I still remember it so vividly. With soybeans, I built my house. With soybeans, I sent my kids to school. With soybeans, I clothed myself. Soybean is my husband. What else does one need in a husband? Oh well, I think that's tough for us as men to hear that. Women pay back their loans. Indeed, 98% repayment rate. Women are the most bankable in the world. Yet in Africa, there exists a $42 billion financing gap annually. The challenge is most pressing for women farmers who struggle every single day and represent 70% of the farmers. Financing women farmers is the fastest way for Africa to achieve food security and lift the standard of living in rural communities. Africa's young women are also bankable. Just think of the case of a young Clarice Irigabiza. She attended Kigali Institute of Science and Technology, a world-class program that we set up in conjunction with the Carnegie Mellon University in the United States. We supported it with a $40 million loan from the bank. After graduation, Clarice set up her own IT business. One day, she was jogging on the beautiful streets of Kigali. Jogging in the opposite direction was the President Kagame of Rwanda. Brazen the resistance of the presidential guards who could not deny her this opportunity to tell the president how elated she was about her business, she moved closer to speak to President Kagame. Her determination paid off. President Kagame asked her to move closer, and she did. She seized the moment. She said, Mr. President, you sent me to the Kigali Institute of Science and Technology, and today I have set up my own IT business. The president was so impressed, called her to come to the president's office the next day. She went over there, and he gave a small grant. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years after, Clarice was back, but this time, her business was now worth a whopping $21 million. What a rate of return. I wish all African presidents would jog in the evening. I think that will allow us to have a lot more young billionaires and millionaires in Africa. Clarice now serves on my presidential advisory committee at the African Development Bank. These and many are the voices and the faces of dynamism, creativity, and entrepreneurship of Africa's women. That's why the African Development Bank launched the 50 Million Women Speak digital platform, together with the regional economic communities, to connect women's voices across the continent. The African Development Bank also launched what's called the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, called AFAWA, to address the challenges of financing for women. AFAWA is currently mobilizing $3 billion directly for women in Africa, the largest ever such effort on this continent. AFAWA will implement what we call a Financing Women Index. We will rate all banks and financial institutions based on their lending to women, the volume of lending, the time of lending, and the impact they are having to women. When they come to us for lines of credit, we will ask the question, how much have you done for women lately? We will radically change how financial institutions deal with women on this continent. We want to have women-friendly banks. At the African Development Bank, we are focused on measuring the impacts of our financing on women, on operations on women. Between 2010 and 2017, the impacts of the bank's operation on women have been significant. From our high fight, 13 million women were provided access to electricity. 23 million women were provided with improved technologies in agriculture. 10 million women benefited in access to investee companies that we do from private sector. 37 million women from improved access to transport, and 17 million women from improved water and sanitation. The bank obviously is in a period of general capital increase and also raising more money for African Development Fund. And I know that the decision makers are here. Ivanka is here, Jeffrey Akamoto is here, everybody is here. I want you to keep your hands together for them to give us a general capital increase for the bank. Thank you very much. With that, we will do even more for women. As I close, let me say, no bird flies with one wing. When Africa fully empowers its women, it will fly with two wings. The voices of women will no longer be heard in the background. Their entrepreneurship will be highly visible, and their determination to thrive and to succeed will be simply unstoppable. When women win, Africa wins. That's because, the truth be told, that's because, the truth be told, women run Africa. Thank you very much and welcome again.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Adesina.
Thank you, Mr. Adesina.
Strength, the potential, and of course, the positive economic impact of African women, which is today substantiated by data we can no longer ignore. Thank you very much. I will ask you now to put your hands together to welcome our next respected guest, Kristalina Georgieva, CEO of the World Bank Group. Thank you.
Merci, bonjour. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first let me convey to you the warm greetings of our newly elected President, David Malpass. He is a great champion for the rights of women. He regrets not being here today. He just started. He needs to get the teams all around him so we can deliver, especially for Africa. I would like to also convey our regards to President Ouattara and our deep condolences for the loss in his family. We are grateful that His Excellency Vice President Daniel Kablan-Duncan is here to represent him, and also I see members of the government of Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you so much for your hospitality. It is really an honor for me to join Mr. Okamoto, the chair of WIFI, as well as Presidents Adesina and Hajar, and to be among those who would convey a very simple message to women in Africa. Africa needs you, the world needs you. I was reminding myself of a personal story. Some decade ago, the then president of the World Bank, Jim Wolferson, at a very difficult moment for the institution, came to me and said, "Kristalina, so much work to do and so very few women to do it." And I reflect on that because today my institution, the World Bank, is so much more welcoming and effectively relying on women that we actually have parity, men, women, in our senior management ranks. And it is from that strong institutional conviction we have made it a priority for the World Bank Group to work tirelessly to remove the barriers that hold women back. It is a question that we ask ourselves: how much is the world losing because women are held back? and being really good with numbers, we came up with the answer to this question. The wealth of our planet is $164 trillion smaller because of inequalities, because of gender inequality. So we owe it not just to women, we owe it to everyone that we remove the barriers that today restrict the contributions of women. We have, for the last 10 years, carefully monitoring legal barriers to women participation in the economy. And in these 10 years, there has been progress. If we set no barriers at 100%, we as a world have made progress from 70 to 75%. We have moved 5 points up. But if it takes us 10 years for every 5 points up, we need another 50 years to see full legal equality. And I would like to ask this audience, are we patient enough or we need to move faster? What is your answer? Faster, faster. Today, in an average economy, a woman has only 3/4 of the legal rights of a man. And yet, time and again, women prove to be incredible entrepreneurs. In fact, I learned that in Africa, women are more likely to be entrepreneurs than men. And yet, it is harder still for a woman to build a business because of insufficient ownership of assets, because of difficulty to get to credit, because of the fact that more likely she would have less education than a man, and she would find it harder to deal with all the legal obstacles. We have identified these barriers, and we have been working to create better conditions for women to own their assets, to be able to inherit, to be able to turn their skills into a contribution to society. We know that we have to come with innovation, and I will give you one example. When a woman doesn't have ownership of an asset, she goes to the bank, and the bank says, sorry, you have no collateral, you have no track record, we cannot give you a credit. My colleagues in the International Finance Corporation came up with a replacement of this collateral by a test that a woman would fill, and on that basis, she can be judged whether she is a risk or not. And that substitute makes a huge difference for the ability of women to get credit. We recognize that there has to be collective attention to remove these barriers. And for this reason, we are extremely grateful to the 14 governments that have funded Wi-Fi. I'm particularly grateful to the US, to Ivanka Trump personally, and of course to Jeffrey Okamoto, the chair of Wi-Fi, because we managed already to exceed our target for mobilizing financing. The first round of Wi-Fi allocated 120 million. We have 1.6 billion mobilized as a result of that. Our target was a mere 1 billion. We have already exceeded it. I'm proud for the work of my institution. We have received $75 million from Wi-Fi, and we have turned this into $1 billion mobilization. But we know that we have to do more. Have to do more for all the women. I met some of them this morning, and Mr. Vice President, Ivorian women are fantastic, I can say that. I want to actually end up with gratitude to those who have selected this picture for the first regional Wi-Fi summit. I don't know who these women are, but they're so representative of the dignity, the strength, and the beauty of African women. I wish you all the best in this summit. Thank you.
Please welcome the Vice President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, Daniel Kablan-Duncan. It's always the same story. When I come in, there's beautiful music, and as soon as I get up, they stop it. Everybody's doing their work, I suppose. Dear Prime Minister of Niger, ladies and gentlemen, heads of international institutions, dear Vice President, dear members of the American Congress. I think they haven't arrived yet because they are in Adzope. Your Excellencies, dear Ministers, dear President of WIFI, dear Director General of the World Bank Group, dear President of the African Development Bank and the Islamic Development Bank, dear President of the ECOWAS Commission, dear ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, honorable guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the President of the Republic, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, who could not make it here today, I would like to welcome all of you here and wish you Akwaba at this first regional summit of the sub-region from Cameroon, Chad as well. And I would like to salute the presence of Mr. Rafini, the Prime Minister and head of government of the Republic of Niger, and Ivanka Trump, the daughter of the President of the United States. I would like to express our gratitude to all the organizers and the initiators of this important seminar, and Ms. Kristalina Georgina, who's the CEO of the World Bank, my brother Akinwumi Adesina, President of the African Development Bank, and Mr. Banda Raja, President of the Islamic Development Bank. I would like to salute the head of delegation of delegations of neighboring countries, and the President of the ECOWAS Commission, and the administrator of the USAID. Côte d'Ivoire is very proud to host this summit. It is the expression of confidence and the acknowledgement of the interest that Ivorian authorities place in these issues of women entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, based on the African Union Agenda 2063, for which President Alassane Ouattara is the champion, the heads of states of ECOWAS have decided on inclusive development for the people in accordance with the roadmap so that we can have equality of rights between men and women in our community. In Côte d'Ivoire, for instance, the President of the Republic has placed the promotion of women at the heart of his development strategy for the country. And he has undertaken very important actions. I will give a few examples, such as the start since November 2016 of a new constitution that underscores the promotion of women, of her political rights, the creation in 2014 of a national observatory for gender, and also the setting up since 2011 of a compendium of the women competences in Cote d'Ivoire, which lists more than 14,000 women and the improvement of the representation of women in the elected assemblies and institutions. And we have decided to have a specific quota for women when elections are held. The revision of the Civil Code of Cote d'Ivoire in order to balance the relationships between the right between men and women within marriage as well. And new provisions have been taken in terms of marriage by setting the minimal age for the girl who gets married so that we can avoid early marriages or forced marriages. And we have also made sure that the widow has her rights affirmed. Minority and affiliation is very important in order to ensure the well-being of women and harmonious development. As part of the support to women entrepreneurship, the state has put in place several special programs, including the National Fund for Women's Development, the National Fund for the Development of SMEs, and the Support Fund for Women. It is a brilliant initiative that has been put in place by the First Lady of Cote d'Ivoire, with about $24 million US. And she has made it possible for around 10,000 women to undertake, to put together their own businesses. Things have been moving positively in that area. Now, the lines of financing for SMEs, about $80 million, has been put in place for those SMEs. Other measures have been taken to improve the literacy of older women and improve the rate of schooling for young girls. These measures are strengthened in the MCC Compact program of the United States. We should also say that with the support of the President of the Republic, we have put aside $5.2 billion with a focus on the issue of women empowerment and young girls empowerment as well. Ladies and gentlemen, there can't be economic growth and sustainable growth without all the human capital, and particularly women capital in a country. And we should be able to assert that Africa in the 21st century will be a women's Africa or will not exist. And since you have applauded, I'm going to repeat it. Africa in the 21st century will be a woman's Africa or will not exist. Yes, this Africa that we all wish for and for which we are all working must come to fruition. and bring prosperity, shared prosperity to the whole continent, the African continent, that is the frontier of development. And that is why I would like to congratulate you for organizing this summit, because it will drive the engagement in this region. And that's why I declare on behalf of the President of the Republic open this initiative in the region. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Son Excellence, nous vous remercions une fois de plus.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We thank you again for your presence. And I would like, on behalf of the whole team, thank the Ivorian authorities for organizing this very important event. And we are benefiting from the legendary Ivorian hospitality. And I would again like to thank our illustrious guests. We've come now to the point of giving the floor to those for whom we are here. We're going to have on this to give the floor to those who have succeeded in the challenges. And so we are going to have the first company, Quick Cash, which is able to transfer money even in the rural areas all across the country. She is the head of 3 companies, including Kananlan, and she will talk to us about this. I will ask you to welcome her very warmly. So the Vice President has to excuse himself. We would like to thank him again for having been with us. Thank you, Patricia. Coming from a family of farmers, I was initiated in entrepreneurship by my mother. And after my studies in political science, and given that I couldn't find a job, I decided to go back to my mother's company and transform it into an SME. The transfer of money was not easy because of the cost. And with $200, with 2 collaborators in my living room, that's when I started Quick Cash. At the beginning of my career, I had a business plan on my hands, and I thought that I would receive some financing to start my business. It was a very long march, and I did not come, nothing came to fruition. And even after having created many more companies such as Canaan Land, I still had trouble receiving finance from the banks. At the beginning of my career, we went to see a bank. I can think of a banker who is in this room. He's retired now, and we were just asking him the possibility of distributing our products. We didn't have any office. We were working from home. And my office was a table, a computer, and 3 people were using the same computer. And I discussed my ideas with collaborators, and I went to see the office of this collaborator. And when I went home, I took pictures of my children and my husband and put them in the office of my collaborator and took photos to pretend that this was my office. And I invited friends who wore suits, pretending to be customers. People, when I went back to the bank, they were impressed by the pictures, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't forget anything. And after a few years, when we went back to see the director of this bank, we told him the truth. We told him that these were not our offices, but we borrowed the offices because we wanted to impress him. This, he said to me, you have just taught me one of the best lessons. You have a lot of projects. You are like many young people with projects, and we're going to help you. A few years later, I was able to integrate an entrepreneur program in Ghana. And when I finished that training, I decided to address the conditions of living of women in the rural areas. They were living in difficult conditions. And I created Canaan Land in order to address these issues, in order to allow small farmers to have access to inputs, to training, to have access to a market, and eventually to social security. And 20 years later, they will be able to live of the income of their work. Canaan Land has started in Côte d'Ivoire, and in the next few years will extend to Burkina and to Liberia. We're talking about 130 million of dollars.
A vision, a dream, a purpose of Canaan Land. This is Amina. I don't know if the technique can show Amina picture. This is Amina, one of the rural women we are working in Canaan Land. Can you imagine, by 5 years, 1 million rural women, 1 million Amina, that has been before marginalized, that before have no access to land, to seed, to fertilizer, to the market, to social security, but throughout Canaan Land standing up economically and be able to play the full role in the global economy. That is why every day, when I wake up off my bed, I refuse to give up, and I will never give up, even if we face challenges like access to finance. We need to transform the life of rural people. We need to change their life. I'm not talking about pity or charity. I'm talking about give them the tools, the opportunity to show to the face of the world what they are capable to do. Give them the tools of opportunity to empower themselves, and they'll be able to take with them other rural people and give to their children access to good education. I think there's no longer time for speech, but it's time to take action. And if you want to act, invest in businesswomen. Invest in Canaan Land, support Canaan Land, the most innovative company. And you contribute to create billion on billion on billion Amina in Africa. You contribute to transform life of rural community. You contribute to make impact, and you contribute to make the life better. Thank you very much.
Merci. Oui, c'est bon. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Our next speaker goes beyond every cause in her country, Niger, and she set the goal to succeed in an area that is usually given for men, which is crops, providing crops for cattle. Her name is Nafisa Abdullahi.
Est-ce qu'on peut activer le micro?
Can the micro be set on, please? My name is Nafisa Hamidou Abdullahi. I'm coming from Niger, and I have a company on producing and marketing crops, and I'm the only woman from Niger who dared to create a company in that area. I'm coming from a family from Muslim, polygamous. When I was 14, my father left us with my mother and 4 brothers. My mother, being a household lady, did whatever she could to help me and my brothers to be able to make it. Being the only girl of my mother, I would do everything that she told me to do, and she told me to dare. Don't be just a mother in the household. Be a woman who in just a few years will be known. Just don't be like I am. You've seen where I am. And with time, I helped her market fresh water, icy water, up to the time when I went to study. And I studied in a public school. I attended a public school up to the time where I got my master. And I also specialize in advocacy. And I've been working in local organizations, just like a Nigerian platform and organization of USAID. And she said, this is what I want for you. But for me, I wanted to do something so I would not remain in the office, because Niger is a Muslim country. Either a woman is in the office or she is married. I want to do everything, but I just don't want to be in the office. I need to contribute to the development of my country. And when I was on the farmers platform, there was a problem in the food for cattle, and they were coming from another country, and the formula that I was using existed locally. And I've been told that thanks to the World Bank, I was able to see that formula that I'm actually using right now. In 2014, I created my company, and all my family and my friends told me, oh, you're crazy. How can a woman or a young woman that is literate will be working on a man's job? And there was no one working in the production. And I told them, I'm going to dare. They said, you're sick. Just stay in the office. Only my woman believed in me. She told me, just go ahead. And I know that you're able. I know you can do it. And when I started, only had money to buy my first piece of machinery. And what I was doing is what I'm doing right now on the harvesting residues that are processed to make them to be more vitamins. And she told me, be strong. I had bought my first machinery with my own money, and no bank wanted to lend me money. They told me, you do not have a piece of land. And I told them, I only have my poor car. They told me they wanted a piece of land. So what you're about to do, no one is able to do it, and you're not going to succeed in that. And so I had hired 3 employees and I was working with them. And right now I'm working with my own money and I'm employing 5 women and 5 men. Exact parity. Just to tell you that entrepreneurship is a very complicated thing. It is complicated for women. People told me you can never be married because you'll be a woman who will always travel and no man would want you. No man wanted me because I was always traveling. She's a feminist woman and this made things even harder. And here I'm pregnant and I'm with my husband. Just to tell you, thank you. It is very complicated to be a woman, to be a Muslim woman, and to be an entrepreneur, Muslim woman. But I still dared. And here's the proof of the pudding. I'm here to prove what I've been able to do. Entrepreneurship requires a lot and lots of money. And that's why when I heard the president of the World Bank, you need to fund women. Women can, when they're able to dare, they will do it all to the end. The proof is that I'm here. We need you. We need our authorities, and I'm honored to see my ministers and the Prime Minister of my country before me. He can witness, even for just 1 minute, in favor of women. Thank you.
Une minute à mon Premier ministre, s'il vous plaît.
Can we grant 1 minute to my minister, please? Just 1 minute. We are honored today to have amongst us the Prime Minister of Niger, who is here assisting his fellow citizens. First and foremost, I would like to apologize for my intruding in the agenda. But after what I've just heard from the mouth of these 2 women, the men spirit vibrated in favor of women. We are to assist women and to work with her. It is a commitment, and it is a renewed commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all, and I'm reassured by this public. And I would like to thank greatly the President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, who welcomed this forum. We also present our condolences for the loss in his family. Let me also convey and to our friend, population of Côte d'Ivoire, the greetings of Hissoufou Mamadou. With regards to the topic that has brought us here, I would just like to say that there is a say that says, what woman wants, God wants. We've heard it. They want to be funded for women entrepreneurs. Bankers have spoken, and God wanted for them to speak. So God has heard you this evening or this afternoon. My women, my sisters, you are saved, and God has made a way, because funding that you have been calling to develop women entrepreneurship are acquired, are a given now. What I've heard, everything that I heard, all the announcement that I heard, will not go back. We will not accept for them to go back. The World Bank has said yes. AFDB also said yes. ISDB said yes. We're definitely on the right track for women entrepreneurship. Kudos. It is a real achievement, this first Women Entrepreneurship Summit. But my recommendation to those who are committed to help us in this initiative, if we want to be able to finance in a sustainable manner women entrepreneurship, let's work with literacy and schooling financing for the young women. Niger has understood that. Niger has understood that, and it is the reason why 2 years back we have engaged in a program to work with young women's schooling. That is the grassroots, that is the basics. And I would also like to congratulate Nafisa, who is from Niger, who told you about her adventure that has become a success story, and also tell you that African women and women from Sahel are capable women. You can trust them. Thank you. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of Niger. Your Excellency, the Prime Minister of Niger, I would like to say that you emphasize that you spoke with your heart because you really spoke spontaneously. Let me recall that we are also followed on the social media wherever you are. If you want to use your smartphone, you can join the discussion through Wi-Fi Abidjan. Now, it is the beginning for the first roundtable, which topic is access to markets for small and medium enterprise with the opportunities offered by new technology. And it is the opportunity for me to recall that Akimuni Adesina, the AFDB CEO, that has made a priority for economics, for women entrepreneurship. Let us also give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. What we heard from Nafisa was really touching and moving, and I'm committed for both women. Where are they? On behalf of the African Development Bank, I commit myself that the African Development Bank will invest in both businesses. That's it. Vice President of AFDB, Jennifer, you should stand because now you're to take the relay. Let's give them a round of applause to encourage them. Now, with regards to accessing the market, if we talk about the market, we need to discuss on four critical things. We need to be informed. It is critical. Technologies are very critical. We also need to have access to funding, what we've just mentioned. There should also be a connection to the market. In Africa nowadays, we're talking about market. The most important thing is the free zone trade agreement. Mr. Wu is here. The ECOWAS president. It is such an important market. We're talking about uniting all countries with GDP with $3.3 trillion. So the question is it the case that this market will become a men-women market or a women market? I think it should be a market for women. And today I'm saying that when talking about market, those women in trade, they are the one making the markets in Africa. Let me just give you an example. In 1992, I used a plane from Lagos to Abidjan. And I was in a an airline called Air Afrique. Do you all know Air Afrique? And with me, I had a compact computer. At that time, a compact was very slim. And I went on the plane, and there was so many women. And they were that big. Once in the plane, they attached their piece of cloth. They did not want to be attacked by customs. And so they attached their piece of cloth around them. And so they had the baskets on their head, and they tried to snatch it on the bins. I was very embarrassed. And I said, I need space for my computer. And the flight attendant came to me and said, what can I do for you? I said, I'm looking for space for my computer. They say, how many times do you use this airplane a month? And I say, it depends. These women that you see here use those planes every day, even sometimes twice a day. So if you would allow me, leave the space for those women. Your computers will be placed down. That is the truth. They cannot speak English, they cannot speak French, but they're the one moving, making Africa to be moving. When talking about a market, we should never forget that many women in Africa are in informal zone. We need to help them become formal, and this is critical. So I think there should be a policy to ease their access to market, but there's also access to funding as straight finance. It is also very important. In our bank, we granted a finance up to $1 million for financing trade to allow to mobilize 7 billion to fund trading. We gave also 1 billion to Afrexim Bank. But what I'm trying to say is that in everything that we're doing, we need to have accountability for women. We cannot just say we're doing things. We need to monitor what we're doing. And we need to really have a stake in women's affairs. I would also like to emphasize lines of credit. They are important because we do everything that we can for lines of credit. And not to take too much time, what is important to remember is that all lines of credit, as being banks in Africa, there should be capacity, there should be a value chain. We should also prepare women to have bankable projects. We should help women for banking systems, and data in the end are very important. There should be accountability for data. We shouldn't just say what we're doing, but we need to see real data. And in the end, we should see effective reporting, information that tells us what we do with regarding funding for women. We should publish. I would also like to say that there is funding. You've seen both women, Patricia and Nafisa. It's not just simply a question of funding credit. We should have some investment in equity. Equity is what increases the business. It's the reason why the African Development Bank has financed a project called Alitia Identity Fund. Alitia Identity Fund is a funding of $100 million invested only on women's business. It is the only equity fund in Africa to fund women business. When I see women, they're very well fashionable, and fashionomics is also very important. If you look at the size of fashion globally, you're talking about $1.3 trillion.
The size of it in Africa, just for footwear and apparel, $31 billion. And so we have to make sure that women actually, we support them to make in Africa, made in Africa. The more Africans wear that made in Africa, the better it's going to be. To finish, let me say, the most important business for women is procurement. Globally, governments have $9.5 trillion in procurement services. Women account for only 1% of that. And so we must change the procurement systems with right codes to make sure that women have affirmative action for procurement. And I want to salute countries that are doing that. Already you have in Kenya, you have Ghana, you have Zambia, you have Botswana and several other countries, Namibia, that are doing that. Let's make more room, like they told me in that plane. Turn to the person next to you. If vous regardez la personne qui est juste à côté de lui, just look at the person next to you. Il faut lui dire, laissez l'espace pour les femmes.
And say to them, leave the space for women. Give some space to women.
Tout de suite. Voilà, donc on m'a laissé la place. C'est gentil. S'il vous plaît, pour le panel.
Okay, so I've been given the space. Thank you. The panel now. Okay, for this round table, I'm inviting His Excellency, Her Excellency Mrs. Aisha Abubakar, Minister for Women Affairs and Social Development, Mr.
Agribusiness and Agro-Industry Consortium in Kenya. Welcome. And finally, Linda Vallée, Senior Advisor to the Minister of the Digital Economy and Post of Côte d'Ivoire. So I would like to say, ladies first, this is the occasion actually to speak, let the women lead the discussion. Your Excellency, what can the public sector do to help reduce barriers women face in accessing markets? Ah, on peut activer les micros, s'il vous plaît. Yeah. Should be fine now, I think.
Hello.
Oh, no. Les micros, s'il vous plaît.
Hello. Hello.
Un peu plus fort. Peut-être le prochain.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. On behalf of Nigeria, we want to say thank you to the good people of Cote d'Ivoire for organizing this. We commiserate with His Excellency, President Alassane, and the entire people of Cote d'Ivoire, and also to thank the organizers for inviting Nigeria to participate in this particular WIFI program, which is very critical for Nigerian women and all African women and women all over the world. My specific question was to do with what government can do to support women access markets. First and foremost, there has to be a clear and defined policy on promoting women in enterprise. There has to be a policy by government that there's going to be a deliberate effort to ensure that women who are in enterprise are able to export their products There's a critical need to build the ecosystem for women to support them. And when I say the ecosystem also, we need to put place people who are legal, accountants, auditors, lawyers, and because all these are people who would handhold women in enterprise and help them maintain a good ethical business with corporate governance. And without these, their businesses cannot be efficiently run because they're always running from one place to another, trying to keep their books, hire hands, and so on.
Your Excellency, you've mentioned ecosystems.
Yes.
Presumably, we're talking about ecosystems which are adapted to the ecosystems, the local realities. What has your ministry done, for instance, specifically to target the needs of the women in your country?
So what we are doing is we're building, we do have some, and we're also building women development centers where you provide opportunities for the ecosystems to meet and where women are able to interact and discuss issues or challenges that affect their businesses, particularly access to market. So we have these women development centers across the country. We have 36 states in Nigeria, so we have one in almost all of them. But that is not near enough, and we are partnering with private sector to build more private sector-driven women development centers. Also for these centers, we need to use them as pitching grounds. Women need to be able to pitch for their products and for their markets. Again, these centers are being used for pitching grounds and then for capacity building, very critical in all areas of running a business. And then for sensitization and awareness, which we have a whole agency dedicated, Nigeria Export Promotion Commission, for sensitization, for branding and packaging of goods and services that women run. And then also we need to be able to work on the ease of regulatory and licensing procedures for women, because these are really complicated for women to go through. So we have what we call the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Clinics, which is championed by His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria. And what he does is that he carries all the regulatory agencies with him when he visits states. And women-owned businesses in particular are given more attention because then they are able to unravel the challenges that are facing their businesses. So he goes and they have to report back to him how many women-owned businesses they have seen and what they have done to resolve some of their issues.
What role can technology and digital platforms, because this is the focus of our talk today, can play in this?
Well, technology now has removed a lot of barriers in terms of excuses and reasons for women, because I think every woman has a phone, so we need to be able to use our phone to the best of our ability, apart from just answering text messages and doing chats. There are a lot of apps now that are available for women for capacity building, for networking, as well as access to marketing. So there are a lot of platforms where you can use them. And then number 3 is you just need to keep moving with the time so that you can use technology to advance your business. And you need to be able to do this to know what's happening on the outside world, what's happening in your surroundings, for you to be able to be abreast of your. So technology has made it much easier for women to access information in their own homes, as opposed to having to go to places to go and do
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mrs. Muchiki, on the back of what Her Excellency just said, agribusiness is your business, and we have seen such a modernization of agribusiness. So what do you have to say about the impact of this new technology in your day-to-day business?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, all protocols observed. I'm very happy to be here with you today during this important forum about the women we fee. Did we say we fee or we are fi? So indeed, I'm a woman, happy to be with you for the fact that now we are empowered. And the women today are not just behind the men, we are beside. Yeah? And this is because we have learned that Africa is rising, and since Africa is rising, we are also rising as women. And we are rising because we are understanding how to capture those technologies that are helping us to be able to trade, to be able to be competitive. We cannot be talking about importing 35 billion US dollars worth of food, and we talk of lack of market. To me, this is market. And I'm glad all the previous speakers have brought to hear about what is going on in Africa, and we are talking of intra-Africa trade. I must say that more than ever before, this is the time for us as women to see those opportunities. And of course, I cannot belittle the fact that I sit here, I go to Nigeria, and I find my tea, which me personally, I have been farming in Nigeria as Lipton tea, packed in UK. So what is it we are going to do? We are going to compete. What technologies are the UK using to pack that tea and be able to sell that tea to Nigeria? Is it that we cannot be able to do the same as African women? We are doing it. And we are working day and night through our different platforms, through our different apps. We have, like in Kenya, we have Msoko. Msoko means e-market. So during this, using the e-market, we are able to see what is happening, what is going on there in Nigeria, what's happening here in Cote d'Ivoire.
So are we talking here as well about mobile payments?
Oh yes, and not just, that's not about mobile payment, it's about the e-markets. Where are the markets using the apps that are available? But at the same time, we are using that e-payment. Of course, we know that Kenya, we have been very proud about our innovation, of course, M-Pesa. Everyone knows now about M-Pesa. And we have developed more against the M-Pesa. We are now moving to M-Comfortable, M-Shwari. We are more comfortable. So you can be able to borrow the money using the M-Shwari and be able, as a woman, to innovate using the platforms, using the technologies that are available for you to be able to have branding, those brands that can be able to help me bring my product here in Cote d'Ivoire. And this is a journey. We are all together as Africans. Intra-Africa trade is a way to go for all of us.
But these are technologies that can seem a little bit scary for some women. So do you also have a role of education?
Yes.
And introducing them to these technologies?
Yes, and the reason why I came here as Pan-African Agribusiness and Agro-Industry Consortium is because we are talking about platforms. That is what I am doing. How do I enlighten my fellow women? In the past, when a woman was seen going around in meetings, they used to say, what is a woman going around in meetings? But today, we are using those platforms, and we are here, and we are going everywhere else, and we're using those platforms to exchange and to understand and to keep up with our men so that we can be able to also compete with our men as we are beside them. Yeah?
Well, let's give now the microphone to one of our men here on the panel. Mr. Adesina, I can see you taking notes. I am going to ask you the question that you asked there on the stage. What have you done for women lately?
Well, as I mentioned in my remarks earlier in the morning, the affirmative finance action for women is the biggest thing that we are doing to support women. Because, as I said, I want financial institutions across the continent to be fully accountable to women. And we can't do little things. You just heard about the great ideas that she just talked to you about tea, what she's doing. And women make stuff, right? They cook, they do all these things, but they add value. So she's bringing great innovation to that. So we want to have affirmative finance action to mobilize $3 billion for women. And as I said, it's not just the money. It's how we are going to change how banks, financial institutions in a systemic way give more money to business or women, and how we tilt them to them by holding them accountable. So for example, you look at lines of credit that we give as banks. We give a lot of lines of credit. So when banks come to us for lines of credit or trade finance, we will basically have the AFAWA index that will rate and rank all financial institutions on this continent about what they are doing for women. And so therefore, it's not just that we are giving money to other banks to lend to them. No, we want them to lend from their own balance sheet and to support women. The second thing that I wanted to say about this is just to give you an idea of what can happen when you do this. Because at the end of the day, we talk about money, but sometimes we don't talk enough about the success stories about this thing. I told you about Clarice, but let me tell you one more person. Her name is Hawa Bello, and so I'm going to ask the minister in Nigeria to go find her. Her name is Hawa Bello. Hawa Bello, when I was Minister of Agriculture in Nigeria, I gave her a grant of 5 million naira. And she was so shocked to get a grant from a government, because normally governments don't give grants, right? So she didn't spend the money for over 6 months because she thought the government was going to come back and collect the money. Hawa Bello was doing leather bags. She has her own tannery, small shop and stuff like that, so she began to do it. Fast forward it 18 months. Hawa Bello was invited to London, to the London Fashion Show. I sent my team to go support her. 2 years ago, Hawa Bello was invited to the New York Fashion Show. They put her bags next to Gucci. Now think about it. She makes better bags than Gucci makes. And she's a young African. And I told Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, I said, I've got somebody who is going to beat Gucci at the trade. It's coming out of Africa. Her name is Hawa Bello. Now, I want you to know there are so many Hawa Bellos all around here. The point I want to say is that there must be financial accountability for the businesses of women. When we talk about the rich people in Africa, we always mention men. I'm glad you were saying men are beside. No, I don't think women are beside. No, I don't think women should be beside. They should be in front. And one person, we supported her, is called Malagadi Manganese in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Today, in terms of manganese trade, she is the #1 producer in the world, and she's an African woman. So that just tells you what we need to do. Make sure women have access to information. Make sure they have digital platforms to connect themselves. Make sure that we can de-risk lending to them. The financing facility I'm talking about is $300 million. We're going to de-risk the banks that are lending to them. Mm-hmm. Now you tell me, women pay back 98% of the loan. Of what good is the collateral? That means that women are bankable. And so that's what we got to do. Mm-hmm. At the African Development Bank, I personally believe in women. I want the bank to be very responsive. We have great programs supporting women. And I think with the kind of women that I've seen on this panel, the ideas and the creativity that I see, I think the future of Africa is what the women do for it, and we will support them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So it is really about changing the image that people have about, how liable women are somehow.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think, I'm so happy that Forbes Africa is now doing what they call Forbes Women Africa. Because when you see very successful people, you see the ones that they are projecting being men. We want women, successful women businesses to be projected. They will be, as the Prime Minister of Niger was saying, support the young girls that are coming up. They will have people that are role models like this for themselves. We want our young girls to go to school, to stay in school, to achieve in school, to be dreamers. But we've got to start early when you see successful women that are able to connect them. That's why we are investing a lot in the 50 million Women Connect, which is, you can almost call it like LinkedIn for women. And I think that's very important to connect business entrepreneurs that are women-led.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I think you wanted to respond.
Yes, I just wanted to tell the President that I do know Hawa Bello. Her business name is La Madame Croquette. I have 2 of her handbags. And with the loan that she got from AFDB, I also know she's setting up a goat farm because she was running out of accessing leather for her business. So we do know her, and I know she's doing very well. We're very proud of her.
Thank you very much. Linda Vallée, I just want to come to you now, talking about, on the back of what Mr. Destina said, it is also about collaboration, isn't it? And what do you see in your day-to-day activities when it comes to collaboration between men and women, or even among women?
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. First, I would like to mention that the Minister of Digital Economy and the Post is here in this room, and I would like to thank him for giving me the opportunity to represent our ministry here. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Regarding collaboration, of course, we do need women and men to collaborate, but we first need to address some specific issues. We talked about the lack of training. We talked about the lack of finance. We talked about different other things, like, for example, the difficulties that we might have in terms of networks. The Vice President was here, and he talked about the fact that there are networks, women networks, that are quite powerful and that exist here. For example, the Compendium of Women's Skills. So we need to work first on all those different aspects, create investment funds for women, create specific calls for projects led by women, etc. Then can come collaboration. And for the collaboration, I think that there are very skillful men who can help women in terms of reinforcing some specific skills. Of course, legal aspects are important. Also, technical skills about technologies in particular are key today, because digital platforms can allow us today really to change of paradigm.
But how did you reach out to those isolated women?
Today,
what are the tools that you use?
Okay, today at the ministry, we have a foundation. We work with other partners in the ecosystem. There are a lot of incubators, accelerators that do a very good work. But at the ministry, we have a foundation called Digital Youth Foundation. So normally it's open to everyone, like youth, basically. But for this year, for example, we have decided to have a call for projects with a minimum of 1/3 of women-led tech projects, which is very important to us for this year. And regarding the collaboration you were talking about, I think that it's very important that we have some project teams with men and women, because we don't have the same strength. We don't have, the same skills. There are certain soft skills that women have that men don't. And they may have certain soft skills that men will have and women would need some training to get. So this collaboration is very key. But I would like to insist on the technologies, really. I really would like to insist on the technologies, because today we talk about training online, for example, which is very important, that's true. We also talk about digital payments, right? We talk about e-marketing, we talk about e-commerce, etc. This is very important. I think that we can even go further. Today in Côte d'Ivoire, there is the Ecom Africa platform that we're joining, and this platform would allow for producers to have access to a much larger market. We will be able to access some potential buyers. 75,000 companies will be on that platform in order to access to a market that we would not normally be able to have access to. So this is very important. Also, I think that visibility is key. And digital provides visibility, right? Through the e-commerce platforms, that's true. Through some websites that are, used also to promote role models. And we really need to have role models. I think that this is something that lacks a lot, and we've been talking internally as well.
And when we talk about role models, I would just like to mention that sometimes we're not even talking about amazingly famous role models. We want someone that we can connect and identify with.
Like those we had earlier.
Absolutely.
Those were very powerful models, because
So they are role models
people can really identify to them. And also regarding the technologies, when we talk about data analytics or artificial intelligence or 3D printing, people might think that it's something that is very far from us, but it's not anymore, because today data analytics would allow us to understand better the needs of our clients and to have the demand, match those.
Mr. Anhoz, actually talking about data collection, this is what you do every single day. Can you tell us about the impact of your work?
Yeah, we are not collecting data. I mean, what we are doing is we are connecting smallholder farmers to industries, de-risking the contract that they can establish with the industry, de-risking the credit that the bank, commercial bank, can provide them, de-risking the insurance policy by decoupling the insured risk from the basic risk, and the basic risk is generally linked to the client, the customer itself, himself or herself here. And finally, securing all the payment. We are using a combination of technologies, Earth observation.
Can you give us, like, because I'm not very tech savvy myself, can you give us examples, like very precise examples of what technologies do you use and how do they help?
We are combining, for instance, Earth observation with mobile technology and artificial intelligence. Provide banks a de-risking, present to the bank a de-risking portfolio of farmers that are contracted with industries.
And you follow the price of the markets of commodities as well?
Price is one component, but access to inputs is important. The good practices, the adoption of the good practices, because if you give you access to inputs, then you need good inputs, you need good seeds, you need to apply the best practices, and you need to have the good logistics to proceed to process your product, carry it to the industry. And we are using this technology, as I said, and finally, we are very cautious about the risk of this digital transformation, which today agriculture is facing in Africa. No doubt, we will shift from a smallholder agriculture dominated by a smallholder farming system to a strong, organized system in which a relationship between actors, players into the chain will be strengthened. And that will require that the question is behind it. Are we sure that we will embark everyone to this market, and particularly women?
So how are women doing with the platforms that you provide? Are they more keen or less keen than the men?
The same ways than men, and more efficiently than men. As the President, as Adesina said it, we are talking about payment, the loan. There is no comparison. If you are talking about trustability, by signing a contract with you, you promise to deliver your product to someone, no risk. Kind of risk you will normally find. So it's a very interesting problem. The very stupid things that we are living today. We are in a situation where we are producing our farmer productivity is almost, maybe you can correct, something around 30%. Farmer productivity compared to in Asia 100%. And in the same time, we are keeping women beside business, where we need arms. So this is that does not make sense. So we will certainly, I think we are going to enter in an abrupt, brutal change in which women will have a key role to play. We cannot increase our productivity by living beside women. It's not possible. We will stay behind every time if we are not capable to mobilize all our energy. And part of this energy, most part of this energy, is coming from women.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Adesina?
Yeah, I just wanted to support what he just said on the technology side for women. In 1991, I was the chief economist for the West Africa Rice Development Association, based in Bouaké, Côte d'Ivoire here. I had a PhD student working with me from the Centre d'études de recherche economic series in Abidjan. And his thesis was to look at the technical economic efficiency differences between male farmers that are doing rice and women. We were the first to do this kind of methodological work. And what did we find? We found that when women were provided the same levels of input, and you corrected for the differences in terms of access to finance, land, and inputs, that the women farmers were actually more efficient than the men rice farmers in Côte d'Ivoire. Now, when I was minister in Nigeria, this stuck with me. And that's when we were talking about the issue of access to technology, digital, mobile phones. The minister was mentioning that. We started with a mobile phone e-wallet system that will allow us to get access to seeds and fertilizers via mobile phones, via vouchers to farmers and cut out the corruption in the system, and we did. We moved the percentage of farmers that were getting inputs from 11% under the government procurement system to 94% with digital mobile technology. And I remember one day I went to Zamfara. I was in this rice perimeter, and there were all these women that were running towards my car. And because we have the issue of Boko Haram in northern Nigeria, there's all these views of when you see a woman in hijab, you think that they're a terrorist. And so they were running towards my car. And my security staff said, Lolo, we have to get you out, minister. And I said, no, I don't feel threatened at all. And when they came close to me, I was amazed. They put their hands inside of their hijab. They pulled out a mobile phones. They said, minister, we get now our seeds and our fertilizers right here by ourselves on our mobile phone, and now the men cannot cheat us anymore.
Mm-hmm. Actually, there are quite a few.
And I think that's the power of transparency that digital technology brings to women, because most things are controlled by men. If you want to bypass that system, digital platform is the way to go.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to finish this panel by asking each one of you a single question. If there is one transformative action that could be taken by governments or the private sector to improve market access for women entrepreneurs, what would it be and why? So if you could, each one of you tell us why, fairly briefly. Would you like me to repeat the question again? If there is one transformative action that could be taken to improve market access for women entrepreneurs, bearing in mind, all these new technological platforms and inventions that are here, what would it be for you, Mr. Vallée? Mrs. Vallée, sorry.
For us, it would be the focus on literacy and digital training for women in particular, because this is key for them to, take advantage of all the potential that technologies and digital
What age group
bring.
do you have in mind? What age group do you have in mind?
I think anyone needs to be trained, women in general. And I would like to take the quick example of the e-agriculture program, for example, which is a great program that the World Bank leads with the Ministry of Digital Economy and the Ministry in charge of Agriculture, for example. You have more than $14 million that is dedicated in this program to the development of specific applications to be used in rural zones to help those women, farmers, to get access to the market prices, for example, to be able to sell their crops online, etc. So this is key.
So literacy.
And training is provided within the framework of this program for all women. They can be 60 years old. She can be 16 years old, for everybody. So training and literacy is key for us. And I would like to add something, transparency. Transparency in the procedures is very key, and we would like to stress that as well. And this is possible through the digitalization of certain platforms to help, transparent access to markets as well.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Muchoki.
Thank you. In Kenya, we started what we call Uwezo Fund. Uwezo Fund is a dedicated fund just for supporting women through government support, through a guarantee system, so they can be able to do business and especially to access the government procurement. But unfortunately, it's not been working very well as we thought, as it is this lack of capacity and always the issue of information, knowledge sharing, and of course, capacity.
So is that where the governments can come in and implement campaigns?
Yes, sensitize and ensure that they make it more accessible, not just for the women in town, but the women in the rural area, because that's where most of our women are. And indeed, the digital planning or digital information messaging is very, very important. Now we have rural women, almost all of them have phones, they have access to information. M-Pesa which started just in a small way, and now we have more than half or more than three-quarters of the population in Kenya is using the mobile technology money transfer.
Well, Africa is the continent where the number of mobile users have risen the fastest in the past years.
Yes.
So I think that speaks, yes.
Yes, and we see that going more, rising more and more. And at the same time, I want to re-emphasize the need of data. The government need to really drive this data. As the president was talking about what he did in Nigeria, really this is an example that the whole of Africa should emulate. The fact that the farmers can be able to get their fertilizer, their seeds in time, so that they can be able to trade. If you don't have your seed, you don't have your fertilizer, the time that is needed, how are you going to trade? What kind of productivity are we expecting? No wonder we have to continue importing food. So what I really feel is the government they should put more emphasis, support the digitalization and messaging, information sharing. It is their role. We demand that the government become more open and share the information needed.
Thank you. Your Excellency, you probably have a direct response to that.
I think one transformative thing would be more investment infrastructure for technology. I think that would take care of so many challenges that women face. Number one, information. Number two, access to networks. And number three, most important, they would be able to have translators which can translate information into their native languages, which will definitely broaden their markets as well as they're able to use the network. So I think as government, we have more responsibility in trying to invest more in technology infrastructure for them to be able to use, access data, access the internet, and so on, because it would take away a lot of the going and coming for women in business. And again, with that will come issues that they would be able to relate other women on the network, on platforms. They would take decisions, more informed decisions, because they're more aware. So for me, that would be the best thing. We do have ICT hubs and incubators for women and the young people generally in Nigeria, but we need to scale up and then put them in the rural areas where people can have
All right.
access.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And very briefly, because of our time constraints.
No, I would say the most important thing is for governments to recognize that women are not hidden. It is the government in most cases that is hidden from them. And so most things has to be about, many times people talk about women empowerment. I don't know what it means. What we need is not, because a lot of times people that say, I want to empower women, they end up being the one empowering themselves, not the women being empowered. So I think what we need is women investment, investment, and investment. And there must be full accountability for what we have. We must invest in women. It's the best investment any country can ever make.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Anna Rose.
I fully agree with what everyone says, but I would add two things probably on top of that, with what you said. Education. And in primary school. When I'm talking about education, I'm talking about learning conditions. It's very strange that at primary school, we have more girls than boys. And when we reach university, we have more men than girls, boys and girls. It's not normal. It is because the learning conditions we offer to girls in primary school are not adapted. We have to change that. We need clean toilets. We need water. We need basic things which are not today in place in all schools in our continent. That has to be fixed. And that could be done very quickly. Secondly, I'm engaged in the agricultural sector. I would say access to land. It's a big issue. If you look at the ways that women access to land today compared to men, it's a strong inequality, which can be solved, I do think, by some decision that the public sector can take.
Thank you.
If we have that, then it will be easy to land. It will be easy to give them access to credit.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Oops. Yes. Thank you so much. you very much. It was very... Thank you. Merci. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Alors, nous avons pris un petit peu de retard dans notre planning. Je m'en excuse.
We're just a little bit late in our planning, but this debate was very vivid and lively. This is the opportunity for me to call the chair of the Islamic Development Bank.
Jar. Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
We are here today to discuss ways and means that ensure financial and non-financial access finance to women entrepreneurs. But do you know that we have more than 1.5 billion people worldwide, they don't have bank accounts. And most of those people are living in rural area or they are working in the informal economy. So the question is, before we go and discuss the access of finance, why this large number of people are excluded from the financial and banking systems? So this is very important questions that must be asked and be discussed, especially by the government and central banks in the government, because it needs really a comprehensive awareness campaign, and it needs also education. So this is first point I just want to mention. The second point I just want to mention also, or message, is finance by itself will not solve the problem of the women entrepreneurs. Finance is just one component in a package. What they really need is, in addition to finance, training, capacity building, monitoring, marketing, and so on. And this is why the financial institution must consider the women entrepreneurs as a partner, not as a client or customer to come and work with them. So they have really, from the beginning, to incubate the women entrepreneurs and go with her all the journey, because finance by itself is not enough, and by experience that many projects and programs, when it depends totally on finance, they fail.
Sorry about the delay.
And this is why I think the model of economic empowerment for women entrepreneurs is the best model. And we had really tested this model in 2 countries. In Palestine, for 10 years, we incubate more than 300,000 women and men, youth, girls, and the repayment was more than 98%. The bank was a partner in investing with them. So we need really a holistic solutions that if we really want this program to succeed, the holistic solutions that focus on partnership, on value chain. It's a very important approach. It is not enough just to go here and there and provide a fragmented solution. This will not solve the problem. So we need to focus on value chain, partnership, innovation, and Islamic finance. Why innovation and Islamic finance? Innovation is the driving force for economic growth and job creation. We see even when we talk about on the level of countries or individuals, women, men, we see countries that prosper because they focus on innovation. And this is why now we see, for example, women, they are deprived, as well as men, from access to finance if they have innovative ideas and they want to turn these ideas into solutions. They don't have any access to any institution, commercial or non-commercial, even MDBs. They don't have this. And this is why we created a fund with $500 million. And we, despite the high risk, we provide up to $100,000 just for the concept of idea, and we provide up to $1 million in the commercialization. Because women now, they represent, when we talk about scientists, innovations, it's very low proportion. So this is very important that we have access to innovation. Innovation is the future. So we don't want really to look at the women just as a traditional business, cooking and other things. We expect that the most of the women, they have great ideas, that these ideas can be returned into a product that contribute in solving the development problems. This is very important. Islamic finance is very important as well. Those who lack and those who lack collateral are unguaranteed. The Islamic finance mood, most of these moods are they partner with the client, with the women, with the men, and they share the risk and the outcome. They don't put the risk burden only on the client or the entrepreneurs. And this is why here another point that we provide finance, Islamic finance, on the basis of sharing risk and partnership. So this is very important that we look at the problems in this context. Other questions also, why the commercial banks and other financial institutions, they are really, they don't have the courage to lend the women entrepreneurs. This is another question must be really to tackle in this forum. And I think there are many questions that must be really studied in a comprehensive way to find solutions for these problems. But women's entrepreneurs now forms a large segment of the society. They proved the success of their project. They really deserve attention, and they deserve all the supporting means and ways. And they, as the ladies here, they mentioned in the morning, they said, we don't want aid. We just want provide us with the means and tools, and we will build our own future. Another thing, the government has really obligations here to improve the enabling environment so that the women can facilitate investment. For instance, now with some countries we see one-stop shop that facilitate the process of investment in all the government departments under one roof, and they provide all the facilities. So all this process which we used to take 1 month or 2 months, now it is 1 day or just few hours. So other thing is we have really to benefit from the advanced technology. We are now living in the fourth industrial revolution. We are talking about fintech, blockchain, 3D printing, and other. So we have really to think. I think I have to stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Voilà. Alors.
Quickly, we are going to the second roundtable of this afternoon, and fortunately, we won't have much time. And that is how it is done. We are live, and we have to work around this. Right now, I'm calling on Elsie Ado Adwasi, Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana.
For Financial Inclusion's Gender and Women's Financial Inclusion Committee. J'appelle également
I also call on His Excellency Papa Amadou Sarr, Minister Delegate.
Mr. Richard Lowe, CEO of Activa. And finally, Adaori Asademe Udechukwu, Team Lead of Access Bank Nigeria. Please be welcome. Thank you. Bonjour. So unfortunately, we'll have time for one question each. But I'm sure that you'll make it insightful, so I'm not even worried. So Elsie, I'll start with you. What are the regulatory reforms and initiatives that are taking place in Ghana to help close the remaining gap? And we are talking here about access to finance for women.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, and I'm grateful to be here today. Let me just say that as a country, Ghana, we recognize that there's a big gender gap when it comes to access to finance. We're talking of about 8% of a gender gap. And so we have made both policy efforts as well as regulatory efforts to bridge this gap. From the regulatory standpoint, the Central Bank of Ghana has licensed a great number of financial institutions, not only banks, because we recognize that banks cannot reach everyone. And so we have a number of savings and loans institutions, a number of microfinance institutions, rural and community banks scattered all around the country, and we encourage them to provide access to disadvantaged groups like youth and women. In addition to that, we have specifically supported banks that have come up with dedicated finance lines for women. Examples are Access Bank, and I believe they will speak for themselves. We have Bank of Africa that have come into partnerships with institutions like the IFC to provide risk-mitigated lending facilities. That's working for women. Let me add that as the regulator, we have also opened up the payments system to mobile money operators as well as fintechs to participate in the payment systems. By that, then expand access to financial services to everyone. So today we have about 32 million mobile money accounts in Ghana, more than the population of the country.
It's quite impressive.
Exactly, and 50% of these are held by women. So the woman in the market, the woman in the farm has a mobile phone and is able to access savings accounts, savings products, loans to go to the market every day, insurance services, even pensions services, as well as basic health services on the phone. So that has been a deliberate regulatory initiative. In addition to that, as regulators, we have actually invested in the infrastructure that makes this possible. So we own the subsidiary, our subsidiary provides the national interoperable payments switch that allows all mobile phones and fintechs and others to connect.
Thank you.
We also have invested in a collateral registry that allows this to happen. Let me just say one thing, that we have realized that as regulators, we have not insisted on gender-based reporting. And President Adesina made a point about the fact that we need to hold financial institutions accountable for what they use the money for. What are you funding? How many of these beneficiaries are women? And that's a new initiative that we have embarked on.
Monsieur le ministre délégué, I think I saw you nodding. Maybe you want to react to what Mrs. Awadzi just said about the regulators.
not only regulating, but also allowing commercial banks to use interest rates that are super high for consumers at commercial level. I'll give you an example of Senegal, the Central Bank of West African states. The money comes to them probably around 2-3%, and it's out for the commercial banks, and then they lend at 5-6%, and for the consumers, especially women entrepreneurs, the interest rate can go up to 9, 10 to 12% in some circumstances. And if you go to microfinance institutions, it goes up to 20 to 24% sometimes. And then these create a great constraint for those entrepreneurs to have access to financing. And then that is, and I'm going to talk in 1 minute, if you may, about the initiative the government of Senegal has put in place, and to allow women to have access to financial services and be inclusive in that sector. We put a scheme that was pretty simple. We have put $50 million upfront fund to support those women and youth entrepreneurs every year, which allows to not only take participation in terms of equity for women business, but also guaranteeing some of the funding and de-risking. President Alicina will come back to that later on, some of the investments of those women entrepreneurs for them to be able to not only buy products for agricultural, for crafts to be able to buy some products, manufacture them, and sell them. I used to work at the Ministry of Finance before having this role, and then I was in charge of monitoring the financial institutions and the competitiveness of the economy. Every time I used to meet the heads of the banks, commercial banks and the central bank, they always tell you one key thing. We cannot lend to those youth and women because they are too risky. President Alicina talked about it later on.
I really apologize. I've just been given a 5-minute signal. Unfortunately, we are really tight with time because the next panel, for all the protocol procedures that you are aware of, really has to start in time. But please, I would like to quickly go to Mr. Lowe talking about the risk. And then if Dr. and then Mrs. as well could let us know, what is the key thing that you would like us to know today? So, Mr. Lowe.
Yes, will you allow me to answer in French so that I'll be sure to make my mind clear? No, merci. No, juste pour dire.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that when it comes to insurance activity, the approach to women entrepreneurs is a very important one for us because of demographic reasons. The second reason is due to the limitations put on women. Our sector of activity, where we can see a rate of progression that is very important for individual business entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. And this, our partner IFC demonstrated the volume of insurance for women will represent $17 billion, and 50% of this volume will be generated by women in Africa. So I can tell you that this is a real challenge, and that's the reason why for the last year, together with IFC, we have decided to listen more to women entrepreneurs in order to put in place the best insurance solutions to help them in preserving their production tool, but also facilitate their access to financing.
Bula, very shortly, what are the solutions that your bank provide, that your activities provide to facilitate access on a daily basis for women entrepreneurs? Maybe, yeah. Once again, I apologize about the timing.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'll just say a little bit about AFI. I'm as was introduced, the chairperson for the gender and Women's Financial Inclusion Committee of AFI. AFI is a membership organization which is probably the most vibrant organization working in the area of financial inclusion. And AFI is ready. It has a membership of about 100 members, central banks, ministries of finance, and other financial sector policymakers. So it creates a great platform for advancing the issue of financial inclusion. It has taken on women's financial inclusion as a work stream, and all the working groups are working in that space and have produced a lot of tools and knowledge products. And AFI is actually ready to work with the African Development Bank. We have signed an MOU. We are also ready to work with the WIFI Secretariat to really scale up this women's, particularly in this case, SMEs. In terms of the Bank of Zambia, I'm pleased to tell the President of the African Development Bank that we are already working in the space of making banks more women-friendly. We are using a tool which actually was developed by the ILO with regard to the Women in Development Program, and this is called a FAMOS check. The FAMOS checks means female and male-operated small enterprises. And the FAMOS check looks at 6 areas of a financial service provider's operations. And I'll just very quickly go through that. It looks at the clientele, whether a bank, in this case, I think I'll just talk about the banks because we've started with the banks, whether they have clientele that are small, medium-sized, what's their approach and their outreach? Are they deliberately going out to attract these little enterprises?
Thank you.
The procedures, I think let me just, what I would really like to say though is about leadership. And I think I saw a few leaders here having aha moments. We need to find a way, a deliberate intervention of how we are going to make leaders support women. Whether in banks, whether in multilateral development institutions, whether in central banks, we need to have a program.
Thank you very much.
To develop champions.
Thank you. We need to leave, yes.
Thank you.
The last word to Mrs. Osadewe. Please, sorry, last but not least, what is your key point that you would like to pinpoint today?
Okay, so three things. First of all, speaking to what the president of the AFD talked about, holding banks accountable. I think that that's something we need to begin to look at in each African country. So in Nigeria, for instance, the CBN introduced something called the Sustainability Awards. And one of the awards that's given to banks is for excellence in women's economic empowerment. I would call it investment, the way he put it. You know, but so what that does is to get banks to begin to think about focusing on women and supporting them to be economically empowered and to participate more in the economy and contribute their quota. And Access Bank has won that for the last 2 years since it began. So under the W initiative of Access Bank, what we have for women in business focuses on solving the constraints around access to market, access to finance, and access to capacity building and networking programs. For access to finance, I would speak very quickly to that. We recently introduced what we call the W Power Loan, right, and the cash flow lending, wherein we addressed the collateral burden that women face in borrowing. So for these 2 kinds of lending, we remove the need for collateral, for the traditional collateral, and women are able to access funds. For the cash flow lending, for instance, we've had more than 2,000 beneficiaries, 30% of which are women. So 2 of every 5 of the beneficiaries who have benefited from the loans, first-time borrowers, were able to borrow without traditional collateral.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I apologize once again to ask you to wrap it up quickly, but you have been able to really give us key insights into your activities, and I think that the audience would have appreciated. Thank you very much to all of you. And we are now going to mark a very, very short pause before the last and third panel. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. Sorry. I know.
It's not fair. But it's
Oh. So you know, for the... Ça va? Je me sens juste... Bonjour.
le sujet.
D'accord. Oui, c'est...
Oui.
Messieurs, dames, il nous reste 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 minutes to go before the last session. Can you please return to your seats? We have time constraints for security reasons and for protocol reasons.
Je vous remercie de regagner vos places, s'il vous plaît.
Please return to your seats. We're going to start the third session in less than 2 minutes.
Merci de bien vouloir regagner vos places, s'il vous plaît.
Please return to your seats.
Ils n'en ont que faire.
Voir avec les dames. Il faut voir avec les dames.
Messieurs, dames, merci de bien vouloir retrouver vos...
Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats, please.
Messieurs, dames, merci de bien vouloir rejoindre vos...
Please return to your seats. We have to start the third session. We have prestigious guests, and we have to start on time. Can you please return to your seats so we can start on time?
Ça va? C'est vrai? Oui?
Messieurs, dames, une fois de plus, je vous demanderai de regagner vos places respectives.
Please return to your seats.